Welcome to Kibbe on Liberty. Mary, how's it going?
It's great, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's for those of you listening to this, we are semi-live at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, so there'll be a little bit of crowd noise, but that's sort of what makes this exciting. Do you have any idea how many times you've been to Freedom Fest?
No.
I don't either. Like, I came to the very first one, which was decades ago.
I remember being here on 777, and Las Vegas was full of brides. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And, you know, the big news is our collaboration, our film, Building Home, was shown yesterday at the Anthem Film Festival. And by the time this airs, hopefully we can have some sort of celebration about winning. But
I hope so too.
We had a great crowd and a great conversation around that. And I want to talk about that specifically and the homelessness industrial complex.
Yes.
Is that the phrase you use?
Yes.
What is that?
I didn't invent it,
Yeah.
but it's absolutely true. When I first heard it, I was kind of dubious, but it's absolutely true. There's a great deal of money being poured into homelessness by the federal, state, and local governments. I mean, it's billions and billions of dollars a year. And of course, when you have that kind of money, as our dear friend Harry Brown used to say, when you strew the streets with raw meat, packs of wild dogs come.
Yeah.
You oughtn't blame the dogs, but there are a lot of dogs there. And it's an unholy alliance between nonprofits, which may very well have started out with wonderful intents and great missions, but they get corrupted by that government money, which tells them, you must do this with it. And so it's too tempting for them. The film tells the story of one such nonprofit, but we've heard about countless of them. So then they just go hand in hand, and anytime there's an attempt to reform the funding or expand it to other areas, it's just a vast vested interest pushing back. So it's really monolithic.
Yeah. Us libertarians probably understand the public choice dynamics.
Right.
And this happens like in the most important things we try to do in public life. The more we spend on fixing homelessness, the worse it gets.
Right.
The more we spend on education, it seems like education performance declines. And healthcare is a great example. And it's when the government helps, right?
Right. Well, and in each case, you're dealing with services for individual human beings who have vastly different and specific needs. And the government's approach is always, well, here is the solution. Just copy, paste. And it doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, they go, oh, we better put more money into it because we know it will work.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah.
I tell my listeners that there's two fundamental filters I use when I'm trying to figure out public policies that I may not know much about.
Uh-huh.
One, I just mentioned public choice. Like, are the incentives aligned so that the people trying to solve the problems actually have the incentive to do the right thing? And in this case, like so many cases, it's you want to keep the money flowing. So solving the problem of homelessness might in fact be the
if you solve it,
the last
you
thing
lose
you
your
want to
staff,
do.
you lose your money.
Yeah, the money
Bad
stops
incentives.
flowing.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think is more fundamental, and you just alluded to this. A one-size-fits-all top-down solution is kind of a form of central planning. You assume that everybody's the same and all their problems are the same, and that you could have some small set of individuals with the knowledge to make
Right.
it better.
Right.
And it's a sort of a fatal conceit to that idea itself.
Exactly. Yeah, so, for example, current housing first federal policy was based on a very small pilot years ago among a very specific population that it seemed to have helped. They just took that and said, oh, it's the magic bullet, let's do it everywhere. And they drove out every other option, every other service provider with all the money they were doing. So that is the only thing going now, and it doesn't help most people.
Yeah. I think you mentioned this in your book, Beyond Homelessness, which was kind of the predecessor to an earlier film and the film that we collaborated on, that building homes is treating a symptom, and sometimes those, public housing becomes kind of a cage that makes things worse.
Yeah.
Am I characterizing that correctly?
Yeah, so it's the policy is called Housing First under the, they call it homelessness. So obviously the solution is a home, and that's where all the resources are going. But like everything the government does, each of those houses or apartments is incredibly expensive because of all the requirements. It has to have this, that, the other. And people don't want them in their communities, so they get built very slowly. And meanwhile, we've made the streets the waiting room because the government's not funding anything except building housing. If people do get put into housing, and it's called Housing First, the assumption is that services will follow. So things like helping people with the underlying causes that put them into homelessness in the first place. But they spend all their resources on housing, and they don't have the services. So now you've got somebody who's maybe in addiction or mental health crisis or both, and they're isolated in an apartment in a building with a bunch of other people in the same condition. You've just created a dystopian environment for psychosis, overdose, and death.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but we were at, I think, the Mont Pelerin Society meeting in Mumbai, and the Indian government had built these massive cement towers that were designed to house the homeless, and they took them out of their communities.
Yeah.
The slums are vibrant communities, right, that basically, as any community would, they care for each other, and there's actually safety in that. So what happened, it's kind of funny that the people that were given the free homes in these horrible cement structures would rent them out to other people and move back to the slums where they found what they wanted.
Yeah.
And I think that's a metaphor for how this happens again and again and again.
Well, it's not just a metaphor. It is what happens with homeless buildings. Is people will leave because they were in a community in the streets. It's not a great community, but it is a community, and you're exactly right. So they'll leave. They can't rent them out, obviously, because they're not renting them, but they go back to the streets. So it's just a revolving. These places are just a revolving door, either back to the street or to the hospital or to the morgue.
Yeah, you and your team at Independent Institute are kind of the go-to guys in my mind for real solutions to homeless policy. Did you get passionate about this just because you live in the Bay Area and San Francisco kind of feels like ground zero for government failures on homelessness?
It's because I live there, and it is ground zero for failure of homelessness. I've also served on the San Francisco Salvation Army Board for about 25 years. And 7 years ago, our board had a strategic planning meeting, and we decided that unsheltered homelessness was something that the Salvation Army could really help with. They own a lot of property, and we figured naively that we could refurbish several of the properties to be transitional housing with services to help people go from the street to their full potential. And so we formed a task force to work on it, and since I'm in research, the other board members said, Mary, why don't you provide us a briefing on why homelessness is so terrible here? And I said, oh, sure, no problem. So I started looking into it, and it makes no sense whatsoever. It's literally more money, more homelessness. For those listening, the more homelessness line is much higher than the more money, and it just drives ever increasingly up. So I started drilling down, and then I went, this is beyond me, and that's when we pulled in these other, 6 contributors to this research work that we did to really drill down on what's driving it. But then we also realized, white papers or books, whatever, are great, but we want to influence the culture. And as you know, film is the great way to influence the culture. So that's when we embarked on the first documentary, and now we're thrilled to have the second that we've gotten to do with you.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this project, and I'm proud of the film that my team made.
Well, you should be. It's very well done.
And I think, as you know, like you can write academic papers and you can write policy papers and you can make public choice arguments and all that, but unless you capture people's hearts, they don't fully sort of comprehend that, like, because like at an emotional level, doing something about homelessness, it sounds like it just needs more money, right? So like, and people always fall into that trap, and I think that's the veil that the homelessness industrial complex hides behind.
Right.
Let's talk
we're
about
the experts. Just give us more money, and we will solve it.
The central planners.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this project, because it when we first started talking about doing this together, I think we had a bunch of different ideas. You had a bunch of different ideas, and then you said, I have this friend, Jared, who has a really powerful story. He's written a book called Crooked Smile. It's Jared Klickstein, right?
Uh-huh.
Am I saying that right? And he becomes the main character in this film. Tell people, I don't mind giving away the punchline, but tell us a little bit about Jared's story.
So how it evolved was Dr. Drew has worked with us as a research.
He's sort of the co-star in the film.
Right, but before that, I mean, we were drawing on him as an expert in addiction, and he contributed greatly to our research. And then he helped us with our first documentary. And then I called him up saying, Drew, we're going to do another documentary. Would you be willing to do the voiceover for it? And he said, sure. And then I started telling the themes that we were going to be exploring. And he said, oh, you've got to meet Jared Klickstein, and you've got to read his book, Crooked Smile. So I got his book and read it, and it's incredibly compelling. He was born to heroin-addicted parents, both of them. His father was very high-functioning and worked as a carpenter professionally. And then his aunt and uncle out here in California adopted him. So he moved from the East Coast to California, the Bay Area, and spent his high school years there. And then went to UC Santa Cruz, a very famous party school, where he himself became addicted to heroin and meth. Flunked out and spent 10 years on Skid Row in LA and the Tenderloin in San Francisco. His book is revelatory because it's really gritty and just grabs you all the way through, but it's also funny. And he's also very aware of what kept him in the streets. And that's what Drew told me in the first place. His story is a story of how this system kept him in the streets for 10 years. And it's exactly that. And so it just became the most fortuitous framework around which to, and as you say, we have to capture hearts to get people to want to stay with us through the explanation of solutions. And I think it does so really well. And your team captured his story so well, gained his trust extremely well. So it's just, I think it's beautifully done.
Yeah. These guys would tell you that with a subject like that, you have to develop enough of a relationship that they trust you with their story.
Absolutely.
And because he opened himself up completely.
Yeah. I had listened to one of his podcasts before we started this, and on it he was telling the interviewer that he had his dad's home movies. His dad would set up a camcorder and record his dad and his mom doing drugs. And I heard that and I went, oh my stars, if we could get that footage. So we broached it to him and he was like really reluctant and no, da-da-da. But once your team, got to know him and gained his trust, he just turned him over to us. But, on the condition that he would have editorial control. Yeah. But when your guys showed him the film, he was just like, okay, great. Yeah. That relationship was just beautifully done.
And from I want to talk about the policy of it, but from a storyteller's point of view, Jared has this perfect hero's journey story where, are you enjoying the show? And do you enjoy all of the series and documentaries and artwork we create at Free the People? Then I've got good news. You can become a paid subscriber for just $5 a month at freethepeople.org/join. You'll get early access to Free the People videos, behind-the-scenes content, deleted scenes, and plenty of other material you won't find anywhere else. When you join, we'll send you an exclusive sticker 3-pack, including a design made just for paid subscribers. You can't get this anywhere else. But most importantly, you'll be supporting a lasting movement for liberty through video content. Claim your stickers now and join the movement at freethepeople.org/join. You know, he's born under adversity. His parents, bizarrely, are filming their heroin addiction in home movies,
Right.
which kind of hard to comprehend.
Well, my son, who is our tech guy at Independent, I tasked with transferring them to electronically because you can't send movies like that to Kodak. They
Right.
won't transfer that kind of content. So he was buying old camcorders.
By the way,
off
younger
of,
listeners don't even know what Kodak is.
Okay, sorry. People who transfer old formats of film into digital content. So he was buying old camcorders off of eBay and so on, so he could hook it up to the computer and transfer it. So he's transferring it. He comes into my office one day because growing up, his dad took a lot of home movies,
Yeah.
of all our trips and things. And it was very poignant because he said, do you know what's in these movies? And I said, well, I understand it's Jared's parents doing drugs. And he said, yeah, that's all it is. There aren't any birthday parties. There's nothing. It's just his parents doing drugs. And he couldn't comprehend of growing up in an environment like that.
Yeah, and you know, the machine might tell us that someone like Jared is hopeless. Like, we can't fix this guy. He was born into that,
Right.
and he really never stood a chance. Talk about in the film. There's things that Jared did that failed him, and
Right.
programs and people and machines that failed him. Talk about that, and then we'll talk about what actually got him out of this cycle.
Well, he kept drawing lines in the sand. Okay, I'm never going to do heroin because obviously it killed his mother and destroyed his. Anyway. But when he was at college, he was doing OxyContin, and then he finds out that OxyContin is basically heroin. And heroin's cheaper, so he starts smoking heroin. Well, his next, I'm never going to shoot up heroin, right? And then after several years of using heroin, it was kind of losing its thrill. He wandered into one of these harm reduction places, and harm reduction grew out of the HIV crisis of the 1980s when people using drugs and needles intravenously were passing around HIV. It started as a private needle exchange initiative, and it was very effective in wiping out the transfer of HIV/AIDS through needles. But it's morphed into a give out drug paraphernalia program, and they give out not only needles, but foil for smoking fentanyl. Do people really need clean foil to be kept safe? And pamphlets on how to use drugs. So Jared goes wandering into one of these places one day, and as he puts it, I can't believe they give a kid with no track marks a bag of needles and a pamphlet on how to, literally step by step, how to shoot up heroin. And he's, again, his sense of humor in the book, he says, well, not being one to question government-sanctioned advice, he followed it, So then he becomes an intravenous heroin addict. So that's, huge.
Yeah.
And as he also pointed out, but there was no information about recovery. And, I would have been open to it, but nobody offered it. So he just kept spiraling and spiraling. He did get clean in prison, but they didn't have, that was just literally because he couldn't get drugs. But there weren't any programs, and he wasn't exited into an adult reentry type of program that many cities have that help people coming out stay in recovery and get on their feet. So he just went right back to the streets. So at every step of the way, when it seemed there was a way out, he just ended up going right back into the depths of it.
So he had a couple hopeful stops in his journey that didn't ultimately work out, one of which was getting arrested.
Right.
And thrown in jail.
And most of the people I know in San Francisco who are successfully in recovery, long-term recovery now, were arrested because, recovery is really hard. And you have to hit a point where you think, okay, I don't have any choice. I have to enter recovery. And it's either, you wake up and you're beat up and you can't take it anymore, or you get arrested, or some crisis pushes you into that really hard choice and keeps you in that really hard path through recovery. But again, there wasn't, aside from getting detoxed in prison, he came out, as he said, he was physically not addicted, but he was still mentally addicted.
Yeah, so he slips right back into old patterns and old communities and the same sort of top-down government finance programs that don't offer him a solution, don't offer him actual support. How did he get out of this cycle? Because he literally dies. Right. And he's saved.
He's in a 14-day psych hold at USC Keck Hospital in LA, and he's planning as soon as he gets out to kill himself. But a surgeon comes to him. He has mutilated himself in one of these episodes, and a surgeon comes to him and says, USC Keck Hospital is one of the few facilities that has a plastic surgery training program. Would you let our students practice on your face? And he's just like, is this a message from the divine that to deliver this opening to me? So he agreed, and he just took that as a sign that he was being helped.
Yeah.
And so he stayed with a friend who was in recovery herself, successfully in recovery herself, and she put him up for the 7 months that he went through surgeries. And then she got him into the program that had gotten her clean and sober, and he went into it and he stayed in it, and that finally, he actually had to do it twice, but he succeeded.
And the key, and this is your whole paradigm, is an individual, another former addict, took the responsibility to walk Jared through his own recovery.
Yeah, and
so
it's
it was a sense of...
Yeah, it's that peer support that is at heart of almost every good program.
Yeah. How do you... So we talk about this some in the film, and Dr. Drew certainly talks about it. He's sort of guiding us as our expert through this film. The question is, what sort of programs work, and how do you scale those? And can you actually replace the homelessness industrial complex with people that care?
I've traveled around a lot, and there are a lot of really good programs around, and they generally follow the same formula of they have high expectations. You are expected to be on a plan that ideally you are the one who has created the plan. Again, you have that support of people who have been on this path before you, and they're helping you. But you're expected to stay on your plan, to work, to gain discipline, gain community, and so on. And programs like that are, again, in almost every community. The one we really highlight a lot at scale is the city of San Antonio. And I really like this because it's such a Tocquevillian model, the entire community has come together to work in a virtuous circle. It's based around a campus model, but it's really the entire community making it successful. And the genesis of it was the the Valero chairman, oil man, saw a news story about homelessness in San Antonio, and the week before, the mayor at his State of the City talk had said, we have this growing problem. We all came together to help the Katrina refugees. We can come together to help our homeless population. So the oil man sees this news story, and the next day he called the mayor, whose election he'd actually opposed quite vocally, and said to him, are you serious about helping the homeless? And the mayor said, yes, I am. And the oil man said, well, I want to help. And the mayor said, great, you're the chairman of the committee. So the city got the land and leases it $1 a year. It's 22 acres. And the oil man raised $60 million from his friends to build the buildings. And it's a campus right next to downtown, on which almost every nonprofit in the city provides services. There's 1,000 volunteers on campus a month. The business community supports it. The fire, police, EMS support it. I could go on and on about it because it's just such an integrated part of the ecosystem. And it's been going for 15 years and it's incredibly effective, but it's also built, again, this Tocquevillian society that now understands that by working together, they're taking care of their own, the people in their own community.
Yeah, like two points that I'll just repeat that you just said. One, a business guy who understands bottom lines decided to do something about homelessness, and he knew that whatever we were doing right now wasn't working and it was too expensive and all of the above. And two, the model is really bottom-up, community-based. It reminds me a lot of, I know we've talked about this before, but we did a film on restorative justice.
Yes, a very good film.
About a community in Longmont, Colorado. And it's the same principles. First of all, the individual has to take responsibility. Right. Second of all, the community has to take responsibility. And third of all, it can't just be a top-down government program because the incentives are all wrong.
Right.
And it seems so obvious when you talk about these things, but it's hard to get people to think about it a different way sometimes.
It's really interesting too. So that program's called Haven for Hope, and it started at almost the same time that federal policy shifted 100% to housing first, and they are completely not following up. They couldn't get any federal money, which is great, because they do require people to be working on their program to recovery and so on. So their housing has conditions. Yeah. And Housing First says you can't have any conditions. So they're two completely dichotomous models. And Housing First has resulted in a huge upward trajectory of homelessness. And Haven for Hope has flattened homelessness in its community. So the first film, we literally showed the graphs, and I keep thinking, why can't people see this very, very obvious picture?
Right.
Plan A, bad. Plan B, good. Oh, let's do Plan B.
At Kibbe on Liberty, freedom is a lifestyle 24/7, something you live and breathe and wear every day. If that describes you, you need the very best Liberty swag in the market today, just like this shirt I happen to be wearing. Go to freethepeople.org/KOL and check out our exciting merch. You too can love Liberty and look cool.
Well, hopefully, and you've heard our mantra 1,000 times, you can't watch our film without getting emotional.
Right.
And the hope, and I want to talk about distribution strategy, the hope is to inspire people to then pick up the project themselves.
Right.
Like, you need individuals, you need practitioners inside government, inside nonprofits, but ultimately you need people in communities to say,
right,
we need to do this that they're doing in San Antonio because it works.
Right.
So what is the strategy to turn people on to this alternative? If the chart doesn't work, What is the distribution strategy here?
So for the past 4 years, we've been working very hard in San Francisco to create a community of across sectors. So it's been a really long, drawn-out process. It started with just one-on-one meetings with every different organization we could connect with to find out. I'll back up. With the first film, basically we had, it was during COVID and after, so mostly it was online. But to watch it, you needed to put in your email address. There was no check, so you could put in mickeymouse@gmail.com and you could watch it. But for the most part, people put in their real email addresses. So we had this plus at screenings, community screenings, we had a QR code, please sign up to get involved. So I've got 10,000 people in the Bay Area who've raised their hands as I want to be part of the solution. And I'm going, well, we're a think tank, you know. What do I do with 10,000 volunteers? So that's when we started having these one-on meetings with all these organizations to find out. And it was great because we were going to them to ask them, you know, what are you doing? We have these 10,000 people who want to help. What are you doing? Maybe we can connect them to you. So they were very open and honest in telling us. And we found out, you know, 25, 30 different organizations from the Chamber of Commerce to the neighborhood watch groups, coalition of neighborhood watch groups, all had initiatives on homelessness because obviously it's the biggest problem in San Francisco. None of them is talking. They're all in silos. They're not talking to each other, and they're not getting very far. So we went back to them and we said, how about if we bring everybody together and see if there isn't a big initiative we can work on together. And in the back of the mind, we're thinking San Antonio, that we can do better together than we're doing individually. And everybody's like, great idea, let's do it. And so every step of the way I didn't expect to succeed because San Francisco starts progressive and goes radical, right?
Right.
It's not a market-based kind of place. And we're basically proposing a private sector-led, market-based initiative. But surprisingly, at every step, people were like, yeah, this is great. They're fed. Basically what happened is for 40 years, the city and state governments told people, give us more money and we're going to solve homelessness. And so people did. I mean, they passed every tax, every bond, everything. And finally, I think during COVID, everybody just kind of went, I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore. They realized they're not going to solve it. We're going to have to organize. And so they had started self-organizing, but again, they're in silos. So what we've been doing is bringing people together, and that's the point of this film. We'll do screenings again with all the different groups, virtual and real, live, and get people excited about, we need recovery options for those who want it. And we need to have those available. We need to develop enterprises that provide those options. So we're very excited about that. I think it'll really get people the next step because so far, recovery's been a hard sell. People were very married for a long time to let people use drugs. It's their free choice. Let the streets be a free-for-all. That has... And you couldn't even talk about recovery, honestly. That has shifted, and people have said, no, this is creating misery for the people who are on drugs and for the community, and let's start opening our eyes to options. So it's the timing, in my opinion, is perfect.
I wonder if the bottom was sort of all of the national mockery and embarrassment of the poop app.
Yeah, that helped.
And like everybody just knows that and I had been to San Francisco recently to see my beloved Grateful Dead and Company, and there's certain streets that are just not available to people.
Yeah.
It's their... No,
it got very, very, very dystopian, especially during COVID, and Yeah, every national news or documentary maker or anything who wanted to do something on homelessness came to the Tenderloin.
Yeah.
And in fact, people started like attacking them and stealing their cameras, because crime was so rampant.
Yeah.
And so then they have to get security forces to film, but they're still coming to film because it's just, you don't have to do anything. You just start your camera and there it is. DeSantis, when he was running for president, comes out to the Tenderloin to film his campaign ads and things.
Yeah.
So yeah, we become really the poster child.
Yeah.
And then we also had a huge exodus out of California. But what I found is the people who were in a position where they could have left economically and so on, but didn't want to because they like me, I like it there, just, again, got mad as hell and started saying, well, the government's not going to solve it, we're going to have to. And that's really what started the Renaissance.
It's kind of like an individual recovery in certain ways. You have to hit the bottom.
Right.
Before you start thinking about things fundamentally differently.
Yeah.
So we've been teasing this film this entire conversation.
Yes.
Do we know how people can watch and where yet, or is that still in development?
If they go to buildinghomefilm.com, they can see the trailer. It's not online yet. We premiered an early version of it here at Anthem yesterday. We're doing a premiere in San Francisco on August 21st, and then we will start rolling it out and making it available throughout the community. We'll be doing screenings as well as making it available online, and we'll be in film festivals as we have been with our others. So
for listeners who don't know more about independent institutes, this we were talking before we went live, and Independent was one of the OG think tanks that was producing substantial intellectual work on libertarianism and markets. I think I found it in graduate school in the late 1980s. What else are you guys up to? Obviously, homelessness, solving this problem is kind of your marquee issue right now. But you guys do a lot. Well, of
just
other
me
stuff.
Personally.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of fellows. We're working on a lot of initiatives. We're doing right now with the California billionaire tax, and it's there's this huge effort to make it not only national but global, with these lovely French economists who are manipulating data. So we're just about to open up. Phil Magnus, our David J. Thoreau fellow, senior fellow at Independent, has been really on the cutting edge of exposing the data manipulation by Piketty, Zuckman, and Saz, who are driving this wealth inequality nonsensical narrative. And he has not only shown how they've manipulated their data, but has worked on accumulating our own database. And we're going to have an interactive tool that will be on our website soon, where you can plug in all kinds of different variables and you can see the Zuckman data, current Zuckman data, the Zuckman data under his previous methodology, which is lower than that. He changed his methodology to very conveniently make it higher, and then what the data really shows. And that will be, and we're doing an all-out educational and informational and go on the airwaves kind of thing to help people understand that this is just based on a pack of lies and extremely dangerous to the future of California and the world. If you don't want future Amazons or self-driving cars or fast internet or all those things, then it's a great idea to drive the billionaires away. You've made a billionaire because you like their stuff.
So California is the poster child for this problem as well.
Yeah. There's a ballot initiative that the SEIU, the Service Employee Union, got on the ballot for one time. We all believe that. Wink, wink. 5% tax on the worldwide wealth of people with a net worth of over $1 billion. So the calculation is on the value of the stock they hold. That's a good idea. just make sure you time it when the stock's up and not down, kind
Yeah.
of thing. So it's just, it'll get tied up for ages, but it has an impact because it's, again, okay, they don't. You're telling billionaires we don't want you in California, and they say, okay, fine, I can go. I mean, the population that can most easily
Right, I'm a
live
billionaire.
somewhere
I can
else.
do whatever I want.
I mean, it's just moronic.
Well,
the thinking
Florida and
behind it.
Texas love you guys for this policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom is saying, "Oh no, we don't want a California one. We want a national one."
Right. So they offshore their wealth right out of the
Yeah.
United States. Sure, that makes
Well, and
sense.
that's Zuckman now now they're working on it, pushing a global initiative.
Well, then Elon goes to Mars, so
Right, then all the billionaires go to Mars.
yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big one that we're doing. And then we've been doing some stuff around the 250th anniversary, some conferences and special supplements in our journal, the Independent Review. The Independent Review is a quarterly journal it's 30 years old. We're just about to release the best of the first 30 years. Continue to publish lots of books. We have The Indispensable Robert Higgs coming out, a collection that
Oh, nice.
Chris and Rachel Coyne have put together.
Yeah.
And of course, Bob Higgs is foundational to Independent. David worked with him in 1986-87 on the publication of Crisis in Leviathan, and he was with us for years until his retirement, and we've published 11 books with him, and now this is the latest. So we're thrilled with that. We're rolling out a new initiative, which actually David had wanted to do, and funnily enough, he had approached Phil Magnus at the time, and Phil said, I'm sorry, I'm too busy, I can't take it on. So now we are doing it on the real American West and restoring the legacy, the individualist tradition and the voluntary society of the American West, and to take the lessons that we can learn on resource management, civil society, and others to apply to today.
Yeah. So one project, I know you know some of this, maybe not all of it, but we're working with Chris Coyne and Abby Hall to turn one of the books that you published, How to Run Wars, which is a satire on the military-industrial complex propaganda machine. We're going to turn that into a comedy series, and that's going to be so much fun.
Great. They had recently sort of revived their Substack, and we're doing a brilliant job commenting on these real-world events around the wacky wars that are going on. I'm so thrilled that I love that book, and it's just such a great project. And again, it's a great way to get this message to people who aren't going to read one of our scholarly tomes on
humor.
Why the military-industrial
yeah.
complex is bad for children and other living things. Yeah.
And unfortunately, your typical DoD press conference. I'm sorry, Department of War.
Yes.
We no longer defend. We commit war. It seems like a dark comedy.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem real. So.
Satire gets harder and harder to do.
I know.
Reality is so.
Is this even a joke? So where do people find your work, and repeat where we can watch Building Home, or can watch the trailer for Building Home?
So independent.org has everything, including Building Home, and then we have a sort of separately branded website that buildinghomefilm.com will take you to, and it is all around the coalition that we're building. So if people are interested in learning more about how you create a community coalition or tracking what we're doing with our community coalition, the buildinghomefilm.com will take them to the Beyond Homeless website that has all kinds of things going on there. But independent.org, we were very early on the internet, so we got that great
That's how you got the URL, right?
But it's just a treasure trove. And we've recently unveiled updated our government cost calculator. I've got to tell people about that, where it's aimed especially at young people, but you put in your age, how much education you've had, and your annual income, and it shows you your share of federal taxes and spending this year and over the course of your lifetime, and what you could have had if you'd kept that money and invested in a standard rate of return. And then you can drill down into all the departments of where that money goes. So it's a great, and then you can share that through social media. Hey, look, I just learned that I'm going to be paying, $500,000 in federal taxes, and if I'd kept it, I could have had $10 million kind of thing. And here's where it's going. I don't appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Thank you, Mary. This has been
Thank
fun.
you, Matt.
Thanks for watching. If you liked the conversation, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and also ring the bell for notifications. And if you want to know more about Free the People, go to freethepeople.org.